Hello and welcome to Beautifully Balanced. Health and happiness aren't found in a bottle of prescription pills or with any fad diet. Instead, we can activate your body's natural ability to heal itself. And that is exactly what we're going to do together here. I'm Sarah Teeple, a women's integrative health practitioner, and I blend the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda with the modern science of functional medicine to help you heal your gut, rebalance your hormones, and calm anxiety naturally. Here I'll teach you the smart, sustainable, personalized, and fun way to use nutrition, herbs, and healthy lifestyle to feel vibrant, energized, and beautiful inside and out. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Beautifully Balanced. I'm so glad you're here joining me today. We are diving into one of my favorite new topics that is transforming me on a personal level and is absolutely transforming my clinical practice, my work with clients. This has been absolutely blowing my mind lately, you guys. This is functional medicine lab testing. And as you know, I've been practicing functional medicine for a while with my clients, a blend of East meets West medicine, functional medicine, and Ayurveda. And functional medicine is a modern branch of medicine that really looks to root causes of issues. And notoriously, functional medicine is known for being very expensive, running lots and lots and lots of lab tests that are really pricey and, basically kind of pricing itself out of accessibility for most people. And I never wanted to do that in my practice. So I really hesitated to start running labs on clients. And instead, I would use questionnaires. I would use, observation with clients, them reporting their symptoms, and we would really discover some of their root causes of their issues, digestive, hormonal, anxiety. We discover their root causes and what to treat that way. However, I have recently completed some amazing training in functional labs and found some great resources where we can order these labs for a reasonable price. And I am seeing that the data that these labs provide can be absolutely life-changing. It can clarify things so much. Having this data simplifies your treatment plan. It focuses us on exactly what your biggest underlying causes are, so we know exactly what to treat, and it's no longer like blindly throwing darts at a dartboard. So functional medicine, its kind of slogan, one of its slogans has always been test, don't guess. And although I was a little bit hesitant for a while for the reasons aforementioned, I am now applying this to my own healthcare and my practice with clients, and it is mind-blowing and life-changing. So there are two main tests that I'm going to talk about today, and we're really going to be diving in to why these tests are so different, why they're important, why they're life-changing, who they're useful for. Not everyone needs functional medicine lab testing, but who they're useful for. Maybe they're going to be useful for you or someone you love. My personal and clinical experience, and what you can do to use this data for yourself. So how can this really help you? So the two types of tests I want to talk about today that we're going to be diving into just lightly. We're not going to get too science heavy with the terminology. I want this to be really accessible and really enriching, for everyone. But we're going to be talking about urine, specifically dried urine hormone testing. And we're going to also be talking about something called HTMA testing. And that is an acronym for hair trace mineral analysis. But before we dive into each of those tests individually, and again, I'm going to be sharing some of my personal experience. There's a really funny story that goes along with my urine test. Can't wait to share that with you in just a few minutes. But first, I want to talk to you about why this is so important. And the main reason is because these functional medicine tests are much more sensitive at detecting subclinical issues. So when you go to your doctor, your PCP, your general practitioner, sure, you can order a thyroid test. They're going to be doing blood serum testing. So it's called serum testing. It means they're going to take your blood, they're going to test it for thyroid hormones. Most likely, or for a lot of people, results are going to come back normal or within normal reference range, even if they're experiencing just clear symptoms of hypothyroid or of thyroid issues. But these functional medicine tests are much more sensitive and astute at detecting what's called subclinical issues. So that means, maybe in a regular test, a serum test, your levels would be within a normal reference range, but maybe that is not a good level or a good range for you. But these urine tests and hair trace mineral analysis, we can also do stool testing, but I'm not bringing that into the picture today. But these help us detect subclinical issues. So that means issues that are not going to show up on your main test from your regular doctor. And this is key to early detection and prevention of bigger issues. So if you already have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, or you've got a lot of hormonal issues and you've already been diagnosed with, PCOS or some underlying reason why you're having fertility issues, these tests can still be really valuable. But also, they're especially valuable for those who are having sort of mysterious but pervasive and persistent symptoms, and they're not getting any answers from your doctor. And I'll tell you, my almost decade of working with clients, this is such a common situation that we see. I'm coming to my doctor telling them that I'm having these symptoms, and the blood tests aren't giving us any answers, so they say nothing's going on. So essentially, you're put in a really powerless position where you just basically have to wait for things to get worse and wait for your quality of life to suffer until your symptoms are so full blown that they're showing up on a regular blood test. So that is why this type of testing is so helpful, life-changing, and important. So who is this useful for? These two tests in particular, the urine testing, urine hormone testing, and HTMA, are useful for obviously anyone who has hormonal issues. So that could be PCOS, endometriosis, issues with fertility. Maybe you're going through perimenopause and you're thinking, man, things are just different. Something is going on with my hormones, but my doctor's telling me this is just a normal part of being in my 40s and 50s, but I want to dig deeper. So anyone who has hormonal issues, this dried urine hormone test is amazing. The HTMA test is especially great, hair trace mineral analysis, for anyone who has headaches or any energy issues. So mineral deficiencies, insufficiencies, and particularly mineral ratios that are off can really cause issues with headaches and energy issues, as well as things like leg cramps, cramps or pain all over your body, stiffness, insomnia, so many different things. But the energy issues also, if you're experiencing fatigue, hard to get out of bed in the morning, hard to motivate, your body just feels heavy, or you have that tired/wired feeling. So lots of clients report this one to me. They're basically like, I'm tired in the morning, but also still feel on edge. And then I'm wired or like activated at night, even though, again, my body's so tired, but I can't get to sleep. So urine hormone testing and HTMA, hair trace mineral analysis, can really help you get to the bottom of these things. This testing is also so excellent for people who are more complex cases. And you can't see this, but I'm raising my hand for this one. I myself am a complex case. And if you have listened to the podcast for a while and know about my chemical exposure, know about my my history of digestive hormonal issues, anxiety, all the hoops that I have jumped through and what has brought me to this more streamlined way of practicing healthcare on myself and clients. You'll know what I mean when I say a complex case. But by complex case, I mean if you've just got several moving pieces, say you have one or even two autoimmune conditions, maybe there's some hormonal symptoms sprinkled on top of there. Maybe you're also having trouble sleeping. Maybe you also have digestive issues like IBS type symptoms or constipation. So there are a lot of different things going on. This testing I love so much because it tells us what we need to work on first. And with complex cases with clients, I explain it like this to them. I think this is such a helpful metaphor. But we have to think of order of operations, what we need to address first, because we can't necessarily address all the symptoms separately at once. Although when we do work on your nutrition, your lifestyle, herbs and supplements specifically for your body, which is what we do in my Beautifully Balanced programs, very personalized. We work on these things and everything can get better. But we also need to really prioritize what to work on first. So there's an acronym, if you remember it from high school math. I think this was geometry, calculus. I don't remember, guys. Algebra. I think it was algebra. Yes. So the acronym is Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, or PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That was the phrase, so you could remember the acronym. But basically, that would tell you in an algebraic equation what to address first. Please is the parentheses. So you got to do the stuff in the parentheses first. Excuse, exponents. My, multiplication. Dear, division. Aunt, addition. Sally, subtraction. I hope you followed me with that. I don't want to overcomplicate this, but I love this metaphor because it's like you literally cannot solve an algebraic equation, or you can't do it correctly if you don't do that order of operations correctly. So the order of which symptoms or which like bodily systems that we address first, your hormones or your digestion or, your mineral deficiency, what we address first is really important. And that can get you your best level of benefit sooner. Also, anyone with mysterious symptoms. So, kind of some of the features of those complex cases, or, headaches that you're not sure where they're coming from. They're persistent, energy issues that don't seem to have any rhyme or reason. Maybe they're a lot better some days and a lot worse other days. But hormone and HTMA testing is amazing for this stuff. And I am so, so excited to share it with you. So we're going to go into the two types of testing and what they are, what they look at, and how they can be beneficial for you. The first type of test that I want to introduce to you is phenomenal. It is robust. It gives you a lot of data about your physiology and what is happening in your body. And I'll tell you, I first ran this test on myself because I always like to be my own lab rat. I always like to really dive into and familiarize myself with a process before I practice it on clients. And it's really fun and illuminating to get data on yourself. And again, I have a funny story coming up that I'm going to tell you about. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about the dried hormone test. So the one that most people have heard of is called the Dutch, and that is just an acronym for Dried Urine Test for Comprehensive Hormones. The Dutch is run through a certain company. I think they're called Precision Analytics. I run a different test. It's called just the Dried Urine Hormone Test. So actually, it's kind of funny. The acronym, which we don't use very much, is the DUH test, DUH test. No wonder they don't use that acronym as much, huh? Doesn't have the same ring to it. But this is a test run through a different lab company called Meridian Valley Labs. And this is neither here nor there, but I just like to qualify this because some people are really attached to getting the Dutch, but it's just because that's the only one they've heard of. The dried urine hormone test from Meridian Valley is more affordable, which I love for myself and clients. It also is easier to read and interpret and give amazing recommendations based on the results, much easier so than the Dutch is. So this dried urine hormone test from Meridian Valley. This test, like I said, gives you so much information. It is just like taking someone's body and having this microscope and just seeing in depth what is going on with them on such a deep level. So I'll just give you several different things that the dried urine hormone test tests for and how these are helpful. But I won't go too deep into it because we could easily do an hour podcast on just this. But this dried urine hormone test is going to tell you all about your 3 different estrogens. You don't just have one estrogen, you have 3. It's going to tell you about your estrogen ratio, which is really important, in addition to the 3 estrogens. And each estrogen does something a little bit different on your body. And I'll do another episode soon all about hormones because I feel like we need to understand our hormones on a deeper level. But when you have this dried urine hormone test and your results, this can really start you out in understanding what's going on in your body. So very, very empowering here. We also have your estrogen phase 1 and phase 2 metabolites. And these are very important because sometimes we'll have different hormonal issues. And when we get the blood serum test, at your good old GP's office, and it's like, estrogen looks fine, progesterone looks fine. They are just getting such a narrow and oversimplified perspective, and they're not getting the metabolites. So the metabolites tell you how your body is processing your estrogen. And there are several different estrogen detox pathways or kind of metabolic pathways. And when certain ones are high, our risk of cancer can increase or our risk of several other things. So you want to know what is going on with those detox pathways, with those estrogen metabolites. You also are going to find out all about your androgens. So those are also kind of known as your male sex hormones, but they really have a lot to do with mood, energy levels. So we're talking your DHEA, your testosterone. There are other ones called androsterone and several other multisyllabic words that I won't wow you with right now. But even if you're a lady, we want to know about your androgens because those are really going to affect your mood, energy, and quality of life. This is a biggie. And so I'll tell you, in all of these, my results were astonishing to me and really helped shift my perspective on some of the things that I need to be focusing on. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. But this also tests for glucocorticoids, which are basically like your cortisol, your adrenaline, these energy and stress hormones, and what is happening with those. It tells us a little bit about your thyroid and your melatonin, and some about your minerals and metabolism. But I'll tell you, knowing what is happening with your estrogens, estrogen ratio, androgens, and those glucocorticoids are huge. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my results and just the really funny thing that I keep hinting at. So when I tried to order my own dried urine hormone test, I accidentally ordered the wrong test. I ordered what's called a 24-hour urine collection test. And basically this test, instead of the dried urine, which in dried urine hormone testing, you pee on these little strips, 4 times throughout the day, kind of spread out throughout the day to really let us know what is going on with your hormones over the course of a day, especially with those glucocorticoids. Those can really change over the course of the day. Also, we do this on a certain day of your cycle. So for menstruating women with about a 28-day cycle, we're going to want to test on, I think it was days 17, 18, and 19. So that's really important too. So we know where your estrogens and progesterone should be about. Instead of doing like a blood test anytime during the month, which is what you're going to do if you just go to your main doctor, or sometimes even when you go to fertility specialists. I am consistently astounded by the oversimplicity and inefficacy of the testing that I'm seeing my clients get with their general practitioners and even with some specialists. But so for the dried urine, you're supposed to just pee on this little strip, it airs out, and you send it in. The kind of test that I ordered, I basically had to collect all of my own urine in a jug that I carried with me throughout an entire day. It was a big, heavy jug, you guys. It was a very strange, weird, like this covert thing that I had to do. I had a dentist appointment that day, so I had to have it in the dental appointment with me because, I had to test at on a certain day of my cycle. And actually, at the end of my dental appointment, it was just a cleaning, but the hygienist bent over to get my bag. And I was like, no, 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 I got that. It's okay. You don't have to touch it. Because I was like, oh my God, she cannot pick up this big jug of pee and be like, what is this? So funny. I feel like with me, there's always kind of a funny debacle, but it's like I'm glad that I'm going through this debacle instead of any of my clients having to. So really funny. And despite that, like hilarious oops of ordering the wrong test and having to carry around my pee jug and then shake it all up and send in vials of pee, it's just very in depth. You can just pee on a little strip and dry it off and mail it in and find out all these amazing things. And with my own results of this dried urine hormone test, or this urine hormone test that I did, I will admit, I had a little bit of practitioner hubris where I thought, I'm going to have all normal levels of everything. This is cool. It's going to be fine. And I got my results and I was astounded. What I'd been feeling in my body really showed on this test. So all my estrogens were low, my progesterone was low, my glucocorticoids or stress hormones were just bottomed out, which just indicates what some call like an adrenal fatigue situation. And, it's so interesting. I know I've talked a little bit on the podcast before about my family and our stressful life. We've all got some life stressors, but running my business, I have 2 children with medical conditions. I'm the primary breadwinner of our family, which I love. But also it can be a lot. And I tend to be the type of person who will just kind of go, and think that just because I am physically capable and mentally capable of doing something that I should do it, and basically will kind of run myself into the ground. And this test showed me that I have been running myself into the ground. So it was really an eye-opener for me. And, I feel like this could be so useful for anyone. I mean, for most people, but for anyone like me who will just think that they should continue at 100 miles an hour and not really give themselves time or prioritize themselves. Even though I help clients do this, sometimes it can be really hard to do for yourself. But having this data right in front of me was an eye-opener. It was a wake-up call. And I have made some really important changes. I got on an adrenal support protocol. I'm going to support my thyroid a little bit after I finish this adrenal support protocol of supplements. Taking a yoga class once a week. I'm continuing with my early bedtimes, doing what I can. But I will honestly tell you that having this data was the eye-opener that I needed. So that's one of many reasons why I'm very excited to now share this with clients. And you, yay. All right, so the second test we're going to talk about, hair trace mineral analysis, hair tissue mineral analysis. So, your bodily tissues are your skin, your organs are made of tissue, muscle tissue. Your hair is also a tissue. So hair tissue mineral analysis is done by snipping some of your own hair right next to the scalp. So this is kind of freaky or feels really like wrong on some level, especially if you have really long hair, because you have to, I cut like 1.5 foot long piece of hair. But you want that hair closest to the scalp because that's going to tell you what's been happening in your physiology for about the last month and a half. So you cut that and then you keep just the last about 1.5 inches. You mail it in, and this hair tissue mineral analysis will tell you all about what is happening with the minerals in your body. So Ayurvedically, minerals are your kapha. They are like metals. Many minerals are heavy metals, not necessarily the toxic heavy metals, although those are minerals as well. But it's like, what is going on with the earth of your body? And in our fast-paced lifestyle, in our culture, so many of us are mineral deficient. But this HTMA not only tells us about deficiencies, it also tells us about the ratios of minerals, which need to be just so in order for your body to be functioning optimally, in order for you to have the energy you need, the metabolism that you need to be sleeping well, not getting headaches, things like that. And this is why I think this is so important. Another reason is because often we'll just say, oh, hey, I might be deficient. I'm just going to supplement with something. Well, that can be a good idea on some levels, but it also could throw off your ratio. Because you supplement with one thing and that affects the ratio of, for instance, sodium to potassium. Which that's a biggie, and that came up in mine, which I'll share with you in a moment. But so this HTMA is so, so interesting. We look at 4 of the biggest minerals that affect all of us, and those are calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Then we also look at your ratios. And it tells you, this HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis test, also tells you, so interesting, you guys, what type of metabolizer you are. So there are slow metabolic types and fast metabolic types, and types 1 through 4 for each of those. So like slow, type 1, 2, 3, 4, fast, type 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you might think that, oh my God, I really want to have that one of those fast metabolic types. And spoiler alert, I don't, darn it. But it's not as simple as that. Fast metabolic type also can be like a fast oxidizer, can sometimes produce too much stomach acid, can sometimes go into like hyperarousal. There's hypothyroid, for instance. There's also hyperthyroid, which you don't want either. But so this just little snip of the hair test can tell you so much. And the things that I found out with my HTMA test were astonishing and so illuminating. I was very low in sodium, which can be very consistent with adrenal issues. Remember how I told you on my dried hormone test, all those glucocorticoids were just bottomed out. I was burnt out, you guys. So I need to work on my minerals. And now I'm doing that, and I'm already feeling so much better. I found out I was a type 1 slow metabolic type. Great, right? And slow metabolic types are more likely to experience adrenal issues like adrenal fatigue and hypothyroid issues. So like I told you before, after getting my dried urine results, I was like, all right, going to go on this adrenal protocol, going to support my thyroid. After I'm finished with that, I like to do one thing at a time. And again, you got to do things in the right order. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I need to address the adrenals before the thyroid, but I can also address my minerals at the same time, which will help me actually really address the adrenals. So that is kind of in a nutshell, a very large nutshell, dried urine hormone testing and HTMA testing, hair tissue mineral analysis testing. This is what you find out, how you can just be illuminated by the data that you will find out in these tests, who the tests are good for, my experience, my personal experience with these tests and how they have just changed my own approach. I'm always evolving. Like I'm always helping my clients evolve. What are we going to work on next? How can we feel even better? How can you just thrive even more in this current chapter of your life? So I have just loved incorporating these tests with myself and now with clients. They've confirmed what I was feeling, but I didn't have the data. And as I said before, these urine and hair tests are amazing because they test for these subclinical issues. This early detection is key to prevention. So that is your takeaway, that you can find out so much data, so much wonderful information, so much empowerment about you and your unique body by including some of this testing. And if you're interested in learning more about testing, please book a free chat with me. I am so excited to be bringing this to my clients and to you. I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. I hope it feels empowering and exciting that you can get to know yourself on this deep level and be a real catalyst for transformation in your own health and in your own life, and that I am here for you every step of the way. All right. I love you. Have a great day. Thanks. Until next time. Thank you for being here with me today. Remember, you can feel your best naturally. Just try one new thing a week that you learn here and watch your body and life transform. And if you're ready to take this to the next level, learn your dosha, get your personalized holistic plan, and live beautifully balanced, you've got to come see me at sarahteeple.com. That's SARAHTEEPLE.com. There you can learn about how to work with me one-on-one or book a free holistic chat and just tell me what you're working on. I love to hear from you and help you live your best life. So until next time, be well. Oh, and if you love this conversation, please rate and review our podcast. That really helps more people find natural healthcare options. Thanks again, and see you soon.